I am Robert Hayes, 68 years old, and somehow still reeling from the betrayal my own son just delivered. As a retired naval architect who built a modest life in Seattle, I thought I'd earned at least a little respect. But last Tuesday, Evan sent me a bill for $150 to pay for his wedding, while banning me from attending. Between the venue fees at Silver Lake Pavilion and the luxury honeymoon costs, he had the audacity to write, "Be grateful I'm letting you help at the bottom." I simply stared at that invoice and smiled coldly. That evening, I called my financial advisor, Daniel Kwan, about liquidating certain accounts, and contacted my lawyer, Patrick Lowe, regarding contract clauses. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to teach someone that respect can't be bought. Growing up in the working-class neighborhoods of Seattle taught me that dignity comes from within, not from anyone else's approval. My late wife, Helen, and I built our life through honest work and small sacrifices. Our 3-bedroom brick house near Green Lake, with its garden and carport, represented decades of careful saving and deliberate choices. Helen passed 4 years ago from cancer, leaving me to face Evan's transformation alone. In high school and college, he was the kind of son any father would be proud of. Honor roll student, engineering scholarship to the University of Washington, respectful young man who called home every Sunday. But somewhere between his corporate promotion and meeting Clara, his priorities shifted like sand. Clara Beaumont came from old Boston money, the kind that whispers rather than speaks, measuring worth by zip codes and last names. At family dinners, she'd smile politely while dropping subtle remarks about elevating their lifestyle and networking with the right circles. I watched my son slowly adopt her vocabulary, trading authenticity for aspiration. The first crack appeared at Helen's funeral. Evan arrived in an expensive tailored suit, with Clara whispering in his ear about keeping the service tasteful and brief. When I suggested Helen would have wanted her church choir to sing her favorite hymn, Clara intervened, saying it might run too long for certain guests. Evan sided with her. 6 months ago, he announced their engagement at Sunday dinner. Instead of joy, Clara launched into wedding plans that sounded more like a corporate acquisition than a celebration of love. When I asked about the guest list, she casually mentioned they were curating an intimate experience, which apparently meant excluding family who didn't fit their aesthetic. Last month, the final insult arrived by courier. The invitation list somehow omitted my name, but included Clara's yoga instructor and personal stylist. When I called to ask about the oversight, Evan stumbled through excuses about limited capacity and complex dynamics before Clara took the phone. "Robert," she said, in that tone people use when explaining simple things to children, "we need this day to reflect our future, not dwell on the past. You understand, right?" I understood perfectly. My son had traded his backbone for a seat at a table that would never truly welcome him. Clara saw me as an embarrassment, a reminder of Evan's roots that didn't photograph well for their social feeds. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed that because I was excluded, I'd still fund their fantasy. The invoice on my kitchen table proved their arrogance knew no limits. Venue rental at Silver Lake Pavilion, premium catering, luxury honeymoon, and a professional photography package meant to immortalize their love story. What they didn't realize was that this retired naval architect spent 40 years learning how systems work, and what happens when you remove the wrong component. They were about to learn that respect and money flow in the same direction, and I was about to redirect both streams. The pocket watch on my mantle ticked steadily, the same rhythm that had marked Helen's final days and Evan's childhood years. Now it would mark the beginning of the most important lesson I'd ever teach my son about the difference between love and leverage. That evening, I powered up my laptop and began pulling threads. The first search was simple: Silver Lake Pavilion. Their site glittered with marble columns and golden hour photography, the kind of place that charged extra just for existing. Buried in their vendor policies, I found that they required 50% non-refundable deposits and had strict rules about substitutions. Next came Cascade Catering, all magazine-worthy spreads with ice sculptures and waitstaff who probably earned more per hour than I had in my first job. Their payment terms? Net 30 for corporate clients, but wire transfers 72 hours in advance for private events. Then Lux Frame Studios, the photography team. Their feed was a parade of beautiful people in beautiful places, every shot designed for social media envy. The package Evan and Clara had chosen wasn't photography. It was image manufacturing. I leaned back, the pieces fitting together. They weren't planning a wedding. They were producing a performance, complete with script, staging, and an audience selected for its approval rating. And somehow, I was expected to bankroll the show while being banned from attending. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Mr. Hayes, this is Jonathan from Cascade Catering. We're finalizing details for the Hayes-Beaumont wedding. Just confirming your payment schedule since you're listed as the primary contact." Primary contact. Evan hadn't just sent me a bill. He'd made me the financial guarantor. I dialed back immediately. Jonathan answered with the cheerful professionalism of someone used to rich clients. "Mr. Hayes, great to hear from you. We just need to confirm your payment timeline." "Jonathan," I said evenly, "I haven't approved any charges. If you need authorization, you'll need it in writing from me personally." Silence, then a hesitant cough. I'm sorry, sir. I was told you were handling the account." "The planner assumed wrong," I replied. "No verbal commitments on my behalf. Everything goes through me directly, in writing, or it doesn't happen." When I hung up, the dusk outside felt lighter somehow. For the first time in months, I had control. Money was a language even my son understood. I opened another browser tab and searched for a name I hadn't said in years: Liam Torres. Liam had been Evan's best friend since middle school, the kind of kid who ate dinner at our table more often than at his own. While Evan had gone corporate, Liam had built a small photography studio, honest work for real families at fair prices. His website was simple, genuine, no filters, no flash, just truth. I called before I could change my mind. "Liam Torres Photography." "Liam, it's Robert Hayes." A pause, then warmth. "Mr. Hayes, wow, it's been ages. How are you?" "I've been better," I said. "I need a favor. It's about Evan." "I figured," he sighed. "He called me a few months ago, asked if I'd shoot his wedding. When I gave him my rate, he laughed and said they wanted someone more aligned with their vision. Haven't heard since." The cruelty of it landed hard. I need eyes and ears. "Liam, this wedding is everything Helen would have hated, and I'm trying to reach my son before he disappears completely. Help me understand what I'm really paying for." After a pause, his voice changed, steady, loyal. "Mr. Hayes, from what I've heard, this isn't a wedding. It's a debut. Clara's calling it their introduction to Seattle society. The photography package alone costs more than most cars. Think debutante ball, but for 2 adults showing off." My chest tightened. "Arrived where?" "Somewhere you apparently don't belong." The words hung heavy. I closed my eyes and saw Helen's face at Evan's graduation, her pride, her hope, her faith that we'd raised a good man. "Liam, can you get me vendor timelines? Payment schedules, anything that might give me leverage?" "I can do better than that," he said quietly. "Give me a day to make some calls." After hanging up, I picked up Helen's photograph from the mantel. She was holding infant Evan, both of them glowing with a kind of happiness that never needed filters. I traced her face with my thumb. "I'm sorry," I whispered, "for letting him forget who he was." My phone buzzed again. It was Evan. "Dad, I heard you called the caterer." "I did." "Why are you making this difficult? Just sign the contracts and let us handle the details." "Evan," I said, "you banned me from your wedding but expect me to pay for it. You made commitments in my name without asking. You've turned your back on friends who loved you because they weren't expensive enough. When did you become someone I don't recognize?" Silence. Then his voice, smaller, uncertain. "Clara says you don't understand the expectations we're under." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said. "You're trying to buy acceptance from people who will never see you as anything but a novelty, and you're willing to sell your integrity to do it. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple," I said. "But you're about to learn the difference between funding someone's dream and enabling their delusion." I hung up before he could respond and immediately called my financial advisor. "Daniel, it's Robert Hayes. I need to set up a restricted escrow account. I want to control exactly what gets paid and when." As I gave him the vendor details, I felt something I hadn't in years, the quiet satisfaction of setting a boundary and watching others learn to respect it. Evan was about to discover that his father's wallet came with his father's values attached. The wedding was 6 weeks away, just enough time to teach him that love can't be purchased, respect can't be inherited, and family can't be upgraded like a subscription plan. Outside, the Seattle dusk settled softly over the sound. Inside, I began planning an education that money couldn't buy, but consequences could. The next morning, with coffee and clarity, I sat at the kitchen table drawing lines and arrows on a yellow pad, the way I once mapped ship blueprints. Every system has weak points, places where the right pressure can redirect the entire flow. Evan and Clara had built their wedding like a house of cards, pretty but unstable. I just needed to find the right card to touch. My first call was to my advisor, Daniel Kwan, who had managed my accounts since Helen's diagnosis 15 years ago. "Robert, good to hear from you," he said. "How can I help?" "I need an escrow account with strict restrictions. Vendor payments only for essentials, no decorations, no showpieces, no nonsense. Food, lighting, insurance, that's it. If it doesn't feed or protect people, I don't fund it." He chuckled. "I've seen this before. Kids treating their parents' bank accounts like communal property. I'll draft the paperwork. You'll have full control." "Good," I said. Next, I called Liam. He'd left a voicemail overnight that made my pulse quicken. "Mr. Hayes," he'd said, "this isn't a wedding. It's a media production. Clara's hired a publicist to pitch it to lifestyle magazines. They're calling it a modern love story and planning to release curated photos to social media like a marketing campaign." A publicist for a wedding. I gripped the phone tighter. What else? The Silver Lake Pavilion bumped another event to accommodate her family's connections. The catering includes a wine pairing that costs more per bottle than some people's monthly groceries, and they've hired a drone operator for aerial footage. She says it's for future documentary potential. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Helen would have been horrified. To her, a wedding was a promise, not a premiere. "Liam," I said, "I need vendor payment schedules when deposits are due. What happens if they're late?" "Most of these luxury vendors are strict," he said. "Miss a deadline and they drop you instantly." "Good," I said. "Strict is honest." After hanging up, I began drafting what I mentally called my Declaration of Financial Independence. I, Robert Hayes, establish the following conditions for any contribution to the Hayes-Beaumont wedding. 1. All expenditures must be approved by me in writing. 2. My financial participation assumes my inclusion as father of the groom. 3. No funds will be released for decorative, promotional, or media-related expenses. 4. Violation of these terms voids all financial obligations. I printed 3 copies, signed them, and placed one in my safe. The other 2 were for delivery. At 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Clara, immaculate as ever, wearing clothes that cost more than my monthly groceries. She carried a folder and the smug poise of someone used to winning through charm. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Robert, we need to talk," she began. "We can talk right here." Her smile tightened. "This is about the wedding, about family. Surely we can sit down like civilized people." "Clara, every time we've sat down like civilized people, you've tried to convince me my presence is an embarrassment. I prefer to stand." The mask slipped. "Look, there have been misunderstandings." "No misunderstandings," I said. "You don't want me there, but you do want my money. That's not confusion. That's business." She opened her folder, revealing glossy photos. "I wanted you to see what we're creating. This isn't just a wedding. It's a celebration of everything Evans achieved." I glanced at the brochure. Silver Lake Pavilion gleamed like a movie set, all columns and curated perfection. "Tell me, Clara," I said, "in all these plans, these photo ops, where exactly do you see love?" "Everything we're doing is about love," she said quickly. "We're celebrating our future together." "No," I said. "You're celebrating your image. There's a difference. You don't understand the position Evan's in. The people he works with expect a certain standard. This wedding is about his future." "Then why isn't his family invited?" She hesitated. Then her tone hardened. "Robert, I'm trying to be diplomatic. Marcus and I, Evan and I, have worked hard to build something meaningful. We can't include elements that don't fit the aesthetic we've created." "Elements," I repeated. "That's what I am to you. An element? A man who spent 40 years building ships so his son could stand tall. And now you're embarrassed that I don't wear designer suits?" Her face flushed. "Our guests are doctors, executives, and sophisticated people," I interrupted. "Don't exclude the man who raised the groom. Sophisticated people don't send invoices to those they've disinvited. They understand love isn't a marketing brand." Her lips tightened. "Fine. You want to be stubborn? Evan said you'd be difficult." "Did he also tell you about the second mortgage I took to pay for his education? The car I sold for Helen's treatment? The 60-hour weeks I worked so he could chase those ambitions you now call yours?" "That's in the past," she said coldly. "Exactly," I said. "And that's what love looks like. Not curated photos or luxury menus. Sacrifice without applause." She shoved the brochure back in her folder. "I came here to include you, but if you're going to be bitter, maybe it's better you stay home." "Maybe it is," I said. "But if I stay home, my money stays home too." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" I showed her the email from Daniel confirming the escrow setup. "It means every vendor now needs my written approval before they see a dime. Your drone, your wine, your PR campaign, it all dries up without me." "You can't do that." "I just did. Evan made me the financial guarantor. That gives me full control." Her composure shattered. "You selfish old man. Do you know what you're ruining? the opportunities this wedding represents? I'm not ruining anything, I said. I'm setting boundaries. If you want to climb your social ladder, do it on your own dime. I won't fund my own erasure. Evan will never forgive you for this. Maybe not, I said, but he'll respect me, and respect lasts longer. She stormed off, heels clicking like gunfire. As her car disappeared, I felt something fierce and steady inside me. Peace. Real, earned peace. Moments later, my phone rang. Evan's voice was tight. Dad, what did you say to Clara? She's furious. I told her the truth, that love doesn't need a publicist. She's just trying to make it special. For her image, I said. Not for you. Why are you making this so hard? We invited you to contribute, to be part of something beautiful. You invited my wallet. You banned me. Silence. Dad, I'm caught between you and her. I love you both. Then act like it, I said. Stop treating me like an ATM and start treating me like your father. What do you want from me? To remember who you are. Not who Clara thinks you should be, but who your mother and I raised you to be. He was quiet for a long time. I need to think, he said finally. Good, I replied. Thinking is what adults do before they make decisions. When the call ended, I looked at the signed declaration on my table. 1 copy for each vendor, let them all learn the new rules. That evening, Liam called back. Mr. Hayes, the caterer's nervous. Your escrow delay might push back their prep week. The venue won't extend exclusivity without full payment. Good, I said. Maybe my son will eat real food instead of decorative architecture. There's more, Liam added. Clara's turning this into a personal brand launch. She's building a blog, Refined Living, and the wedding's her big reveal. I closed my eyes, feeling the headache rise. Liam, start documenting everything. Photos, emails, anything that proves this was never about love. Already on it, he said. And sir, for what it's worth, Helen would be proud. I glanced at her picture, the evening light soft on her smile. I'm trying, sweetheart, I whispered, trying to save our boy before he forgets who he is. Outside, Seattle darkened beneath the autumn sky. Inside, I prepared for the fight that comes when love refuses to be bought and respect demands to be earned. The wedding was 5 weeks away, and every day my son delayed choosing between his father's values and Clara's ambition. The lesson only grew more expensive. He used to value my opinion. Now he avoids my calls. He used to bring girlfriends home to meet me. He hid you for 6 months. He used to talk about his future with excitement. Now he talks about it like a business proposal. Clara's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and frowned. That's Brent Coulson, our wedding planner. He wants to meet this afternoon to discuss budget realities. Brent Coulson? I asked. He's coordinating everything. Evan found him through work connections, very exclusive clientele. Something in her tone made my instincts stir. How exclusive? He only takes referrals, she said smoothly. Very discreet, very professional. He's handled weddings for some of Seattle's most prominent families. After she left, I called Liam immediately. I need you to look into someone named Brent Coulson, wedding planner, exclusive clients, works by referral only. On it. Give me an hour. When Liam called back, his voice carried the kind of tension that makes your stomach drop. Mr. Hayes, Brent Coulson isn't just a wedding planner. He's what they call a lifestyle facilitator. He arranges financing through private lenders to help people look richer than they are. Private lenders? I asked. Think payday loans for the wealthy, he said. Short-term, high interest, designed to bridge the gap between image and reality. Coulson takes a percentage of every deal. My chest tightened. Are you telling me Evan borrowed money for this wedding? I'm telling you, Coulson's entire business model is helping young professionals fake affluence until they can afford it. And most never can. Based on what I've heard, we're talking 60 to 80,000, maybe more. I hung up and immediately called Daniel Kwan, my financial advisor. Daniel, I need a credit report on Evan, full financial activity. Robert, I can't do that without his consent. Then call him and get his consent. Tell him his father needs to understand the situation before any money leaves my account. If he refuses, then that tells me everything I need to know. An hour later, my phone rang. Evan's voice was taut with anger. Dad, why are you checking my credit? Don't you trust me? Evan, trust has to be earned. And lately, you haven't been earning it. That's insulting. I'm a grown man with a good job and a bright future. Then you won't mind showing me your financial statements. Silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller. There might be some temporary cash flow issues. Define temporary. Brent arranged a bridge loan to cover vendor deposits. It's standard for weddings like this. Everyone does it. How much? 75,000. The number hit me like a blow. Evan, that's more than most people make in a year. It's an investment in our future. Clara's family expects a certain standard. And what happens if your promotion doesn't come through? If the market shifts? If you can't service the debt? Dad, you're catastrophizing. It'll work out. Those are the famous last words of every man who ever went bankrupt. That afternoon, Brent Coulson himself called, his voice smooth and expensive. Mr. Hayes, I understand there's been some confusion about vendor authorizations. I'd like to meet and walk you through our structure. I'll meet you, I said, but I'm bringing my financial advisor. Of course, he replied. Transparency is everything in my line of work. We met at Coulson's office downtown. Everything about the space screamed curated luxury. Leather chairs, walnut paneling, abstract art meant to impress rather than inspire. Coulson was exactly what I expected. Polished, charming, and entirely at ease spending other people's money. Or Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming, he said, his smile as fixed as his cufflinks. I assure you your son's financing is perfectly above board. We specialize in helping young professionals bridge current income and future earning potential. At what interest rate? I asked. His smile didn't waver. Our rates are competitive. That's not an answer, Daniel interjected. What's the annual percentage? 18%, Coulson said. I nearly choked. 18? Are you serious? It's a short-term facility, he said smoothly. 6 months maximum. Once Evan's promotion comes through, he'll refinance traditionally. And if it doesn't come through? Coulson hesitated. We're confident in his prospects. And if you're wrong? Then we work out arrangements that protect everyone's interests. Daniel and I exchanged a look. We both knew what that meant. Collections, lawsuits, credit ruin. Mr. Coulson, I said, I want to see the loan documents. I'm afraid those are confidential. Then this meeting is over. I stood to leave, but Coulson raised a hand. Perhaps we can reach an accommodation. If you were to guarantee part of the loan, we could restructure at better terms. You're asking me to co-sign my son's debt? Think of it as supporting his ambitions. I think of it as enabling his delusions. Daniel and I walked out without another word. That evening, the vendor calls started coming in. Cascade Catering, Silver Lake Pavilion, Lux Frame Studios, each politely demanding confirmation of payments. I gave them all the same response. Submit your invoices to my escrow account. If I approve them, you'll be paid within 24 hours. If I don't, find another source. By Friday, the pressure was visible. Clara called twice. Evan called 3 times. Coulson left 2 voicemails. Every conversation followed the same script. Pleading, reasoning, bargaining, threats. Dad, you're sabotaging my wedding. I'm teaching you about consequences. Clara's parents are asking questions. Her father wants to know if we can handle our commitments. Can you? We can, with your help. That's not the same thing as being able to handle them. That night, Liam called again. Mr. Hayes, the venue's getting nervous. Payments are behind. If funds don't clear by Wednesday, they might reassign the date. Good, I said. Maybe Evan will learn that deadlines matter. The next morning, Evan called, his voice breaking. Dad, please, I'm begging you. Just this once. Help me out. I'll pay you back. Evan, I said softly, I've been helping you out your whole life. Tuition, car payments, medical bills. When has it ever been just once? This is different. How? Because if you don't help me, I'll lose everything. Clara, the wedding, my reputation. Maybe losing everything isn't the worst thing that can happen. Maybe it's the only thing that will teach you who you are. The silence on the line was long and heavy. I never thought my father would abandon me. He said finally, I'm not abandoning you. I replied, I'm refusing to rescue you from choices you made without me. There's a difference. What am I supposed to do? Be honest with Clara about your finances. Scale down to something you can afford. Stop trying to impress people who don't care about you. And if she leaves, then you'll know what kind of love it was. After hanging up, I sat for a long time staring at Helen's picture. Tough love is the hardest kind, because it forces you to watch someone suffer consequences you could prevent. But stopping them would only teach them that safety comes without responsibility. Then Brent Coulson called again, his once smooth voice edged with strain. Mr. Hayes, we need to talk. Vendors are threatening to walk. You're forcing decisions through financial pressure. You gave my son money he can't repay for a wedding he can't afford, I said. Don't talk to me about fairness. We're just trying to help Evan achieve his dreams. No, I said, my voice steady and final. You're helping him drown beautifully. You're helping him buy a fantasy with borrowed money, I said coldly. And when reality comes due, you'll be long gone with your commission while he's left drowning in debt. Mr. Hayes, Brent Coulson replied smoothly. Perhaps we could arrange a payment plan that works for everyone. Here's my payment plan, I interrupted. Evan cancels the loan, scales back the wedding, and learns to live within his means. You, on the other hand, go find another victim. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. Tom, I need a letter drafted stating I have zero financial responsibility for any debts incurred by my son without my written consent. Robert, he said cautiously, what's going on? My son is learning the difference between what he wants and what he can afford, I replied, and I'm making sure his education doesn't become my obligation. The war lines were drawn. On one side stood Evan, Clara, and Coulson, clinging to their illusion of success built on borrowed money and exclusion. On the other stood me, armed only with principle and the discipline to enforce it. The wedding was 4 weeks away. Something had to give. I just prayed my son would land on solid ground instead of the house of cards he was building. Monday morning came with a call that told me things had gone from bad to critical. Coulson's smooth tone was gone, replaced by strain. "Mr. Hayes, we have a problem. Silver Lake Pavilion is threatening to cancel unless they receive full payment by Wednesday." "That's 48 hours," I said calmly. Then you'd better figure out where to find $48,000. "Sir, with respect, this affects your son's reputation as much as his finances. When people hear the Hayes-Beaumont wedding was canceled for non-payment, that'll follow Evan for years." I set my coffee cup down carefully. "Mr. Coulson, are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining consequences. Seattle's professional circles are small. People talk." "Let them," I said. "Maybe they'll talk about a man who refused to bankroll a fantasy." "Mr. Hayes, I've worked with many families like yours," he pressed. "There's always a way to preserve everyone's dignity." "Whose dignity are we talking about? Yours? Clara's? Because my son lost his the moment he borrowed money to impress people who don't actually care about him." "I'm trying to help your son," Coulson said sharply. "No," I replied. "You're trying to protect your commission. There's a difference." I hung up and immediately called Liam. "How fast can you get to Silver Lake Pavilion?" 20 minutes. "Why?" "I want eyes on the ground. If they're really prepping to cancel, you'll see signs, staff meetings, alternate bookings, something." "On my way." An hour later, he called back. "Mr. Hayes, it's real. I overheard the events coordinator telling another client the October 28th slot might open due to payment issues." "Good," I said. "Let my son learn what a contract really means." By noon, Clara called in full panic. "Robert, Brent says you're refusing to guarantee the venue payment. Do you understand what this means?" "Yes, it means actions have consequences." "It means social suicide," she snapped. "Do you realize who's supposed to be at this wedding? Partners from Evan's firm, clients, investors, people whose opinions matter. If those people are truly his friends and colleagues," I said, "they'll respect him for being responsible, not reckless. That's not how the world works." "That's not how your world works," I said evenly. "There's a difference." Her voice cracked. "You're destroying everything we've built. What you've built is a house of cards. I'm just refusing to hold it up. Evan will never forgive you." "Maybe not," I said quietly. "But he'll survive, and maybe someday he'll thank me." Tuesday brought the confrontation I'd been dreading. Evan asked to meet at Green Lake Park, the place where Helen and I used to take him to feed ducks when he was a boy. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. He was already there, sitting on the same worn bench, looking older than his 32 years. "Dad, we need to fix this." I sat beside him. Sometimes silence says more than words. "Brent says the venue's gone unless we pay by tomorrow," he said. "Clara's been crying for 2 days. Her mother even offered to help, which was humiliating beyond words." "What did you tell her?" "That we had it handled." "But we don't, do we?" He shook his head. "No." "Evan, when did you stop telling me the truth?" He stared at the pond. "When I started being ashamed of it." "Ashamed of what?" "Of needing help, of not being as successful as I pretend to be, of dating a woman whose family has more money than mine ever will. And you thought borrowing money would fix that?" "I thought it would buy me time to catch up." "Catch up to what? To an image that doesn't exist." We sat quietly for several minutes. Then he whispered, "I love her. Dad, I know you don't understand, but I do." "I understand love," I said softly. "What I don't understand is destroying yourself to keep it." She's not asking me to sacrifice myself. Isn't she? She asked you to exclude your father, to borrow money you can't repay, to pretend to be someone you're not. What part of yourself is left? He dropped his head into his hands. I don't know anymore. Then maybe it's time to find out. That evening, the final storm hit. Clara called, then Evan, then Coulson again, each more desperate than the last. You're a bitter old man who can't stand to see his son succeed. You're sabotaging him out of jealousy. You're proving Clara was right about you. I didn't argue. Sometimes the truth stands taller in silence. By Wednesday morning, I got the call I'd been expecting. Mr. Hayes, this is Patricia from Silver Lake Pavilion. I'm calling to confirm we'll need to release the October 28th date unless payment is received by 5 p.m. today. I understand completely, I said. Business is business. Will payment be forthcoming? Not from me. I see. Should I inform the wedding party? That's your call. My son made commitments without funding. The consequences belong to him. At 3 p.m., Evan called, voice breaking. Dad, they canceled the venue. Clara's locked herself in the bedroom. Her parents are on their way. It's a disaster. No, I said. That's reality arriving right on time. How can you be so calm? Because I've been expecting this. You can't build dreams on borrowed money and expect them to stand. What am I supposed to do now? Make better choices. Cancel the loan before it ruins your credit. Plan a wedding you can actually afford. Marry Clara if you love her, not her lifestyle. And if she won't marry me without the big wedding, then you'll know what she really loved. Thursday brought news I hadn't anticipated. Liam called, his tone grim. Mr. Hayes, I found something. Clara's been meeting with a real estate agent. For what? Condos? Expensive ones. Downtown high-rises. Twice Evan's annual salary. She's been pre-approved for a mortgage assuming a $300,000 household income. My stomach sank. She's expecting my money, I said quietly. That's what it looks like. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Clara hadn't been planning a marriage. She'd been planning a lifestyle, funded by me. The wedding was never love. It was an investment pitch. I called Evan immediately. Son, come over. Now. Dad, I can't handle another lecture. This isn't a lecture. It's about Clara's real plans. When he arrived, I showed him the photos Liam had taken. Clara walking into Pinnacle Properties, shaking hands with an agent, touring condos that cost more than most homes. I don't understand, he said, but his voice said he did. She's shopping for a life she expects me to pay for, I said. The wedding was just the down payment. He stared at the photos for a long time. You think she planned this from the start? I think she saw a young man with potential and access to family money and made her move. That's a terrible thing to accuse someone of. It's a terrible thing to do to someone, I said. He stood by the window, looking out at the garden Helen had planted decades ago. Dad, what if you're right? What if everything I believed was a lie? Then you've learned one of life's hardest lessons early enough to recover. And if I'm wrong, then Clara will prove it, by staying, even when the money's gone. Friday brought that test. Evan called Clara and told her the truth. The venue was gone, the loan canceled, the wedding scaled down or postponed. Her response was immediate. She didn't ask how he felt or what they could do together. Her first question was whether my escrow account could still be accessed for a smaller venue. When he said no, she suggested postponing until we can do it right. By which she meant expensive. I said when he told me, "What did you tell her?" I told her that if she loved me, We could marry at City Hall with 2 witnesses and it'd be just as real. And she said that I didn't understand what marriage represents socially. The final blow came Saturday morning. Evan showed up at my door with a manila envelope and eyes that looked like they hadn't closed all night. "Dad, I need you to see this." Inside were the original seating charts for the canceled wedding found in Clara's desk. But this wasn't just a guest list. It was a networking map. Table 1, her parents and their country club friends. Table 2, partners from Evan's firm. Table 3, investors and business leaders Clara wanted to cultivate. It wasn't a wedding. It was a merger meeting. Each table had been meticulously arranged for maximum social and professional gain. Table 7, labeled Family Obligations, had exactly 4 seats: Evan's aunt and uncle from Portland, a distant cousin he barely knew, and at the bottom, in small print, a note that froze my blood: "Father's seat TBD, pending contribution resolution." Even at his own wedding, Clara had treated my presence as conditional on my financial compliance. "Evan," I said quietly, "look at table 7. He scanned the chart, and I watched the realization spread across his face. Confusion, recognition, then the quiet devastation of understanding. She was never going to let you come unless you paid. Was she? Apparently not, he said softly. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry." "Don't apologize to me," I told him. "Apologize to yourself for letting someone decide your worth." He folded the seating chart carefully, like something fragile and toxic, and when he looked at me again, I saw something I hadn't seen in 2 years. My son, not the man molded by Clara's ambitions, but the one Helen and I had raised. "Dad, what do I do now?" "You decide who you want to be, with or without Clara, with or without the debt, with or without the illusion she sold you. It'll hurt. Growth always does. But staying a child forever hurts worse, and children don't make marriages work." Evan left that afternoon, determined to have what he called the most important conversation of my life. I didn't hear from him for 3 days. When he finally called, his voice sounded lighter, almost free. "Dad, Clara and I are taking a break. She's moving back to San Francisco to think things through. The wedding's officially postponed. How do you feel about that?" Relieved, scared, grateful, like I can breathe again for the first time in months. "And the debt?" "Brent's restructuring it into a personal loan with better terms. 2 years to pay off, but I'll manage it myself. No one else will be on the hook." "Evan, I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For making a mess. For cleaning it up before it became permanent." That night, the tension that had strangled our family for months finally began to loosen. My son was learning the difference between love and leverage, between support and servitude, between family and transactions. The lessons were expensive, but invaluable. I sat in my kitchen, staring at Helen's photograph, feeling something I hadn't felt since this ordeal began. Peace, not because everything was fixed, but because truth had finally replaced pretense. The wedding might be gone, but my son was coming back to himself, and that was worth more than any celebration Clara could stage. The peace lasted 48 hours. Then Liam called with a tone that erased it instantly. "Mr. Hayes, you need to hear this. That company I mentioned, Clara Beaumont Consulting, the LLC, I pulled the filings. It was registered 6 months ago, right after the engagement." I set down my coffee. "What kind of company?" "On paper, it's a lifestyle consultancy, but the financial activity doesn't match. Big deposits from unknown sources, payments to luxury retailers, money transfers that make no sense." "Speak plainly, Liam." She's been using the company to hide personal purchases, jewelry, furniture, designer clothing, all paid through Beaumont Consulting. It's a shell. The words hit like a punch. Clara hadn't just been planning an expensive wedding. She'd been building an expensive life behind Evan's back. How much? At least $40,000 in 6 months. Maybe more. Where's the money coming from? No clue. The deposits are random. Different amounts, different times. Not salary, not family money, something else. I called my lawyer immediately. Tom, I need a full corporate check on Beaumont Consulting. Ownership, filings, financials, anything you can access legally. Robert, last week it was wedding debt. Now it's corporate fraud. I think the wedding was just the tip of the iceberg. 3 hours later, Tom called back. Robert, Beaumont Consulting is registered as a sole proprietorship under Clara's name, but the listed address is a mailbox service downtown, one of those professional suites people use when they don't want to be found. Which means, whatever she's doing, she doesn't want it connected to her real life. That afternoon, I called Evan. Son, I need you to come over. It's important. Dad, what now? Just come. When he arrived, I handed him the corporate documents, Clara's name, the mailbox address, the business classification. Did you know Clara started a company 6 months ago? His face went blank. She doesn't have a company. She works for the nonprofit. That's her only job. According to these records, she's running a business that's processed over 40 grand in 6 months. That's impossible. I handle our joint finances. I'd know. Do you? I asked. When's the last time you looked at your account statements? He hesitated. Clara handles the day-to-day. She's better with details. Then check it. Now. He opened his banking app. As he scrolled, I saw the color drain from his face. Dad, there are withdrawals I don't recognize. Large ones. 5,000 in August, 8 in September, all labeled wedding expenses. How much should be in there? 25,000, from my bonus and her contributions. And now? 3,000, he said, voice shaking. The silence in my kitchen felt heavier than the air itself. Outside, Seattle carried on as usual. Inside, my son was realizing the woman he'd trusted had been quietly bleeding him dry. Marcus. I stopped myself. Evan, we need to know where that money went. It has to be a mistake. He whispered. She wouldn't. She couldn't. Some people will do anything when they want something badly enough, I said quietly. He spent the next hour with the bank's fraud department. When the results came in, the picture was ugly. Cash withdrawals across the city, wire transfers directly to Beaumont Consulting. She was funneling our joint money into her private account. He said, voice hollow. But why? What was she buying? Before I could answer, my phone rang again. It was Liam, and his tone told me he'd found something big. Mr. Hayes, I know where the money went. A friend at Cartier downtown says Clara's been a regular for months. Jewelry, watches, accessories, all paid in cash. Under her company name, around 30 grand since spring. Anything else? Yeah, she's also been furnishing a so-called consulting office. Designer pieces, not registry stuff. 15 grand minimum. When I hung up, Evan was staring at his phone, pale and silent. Dad, she's been lying to me for months, about everything. You trusted her, I said. That's not stupidity, son. That's love. She chose to exploit it. Just then, another call came through. Brent Colson, sounding far less composed than usual. Mr. Hayes, we have a serious issue. Vendors are threatening legal action over unpaid deposits. That's Evan's problem, not mine. Sir, your name is on the vendor contracts as guarantor. You could be liable. My pulse quickened. I never signed any such agreement. The planning contract includes a clause. Primary family contact assumes financial responsibility. I looked at Evan, who was listening in disbelief. Send me every document with my supposed signature, I said flatly. Mr. Hayes, we need to resolve this quickly. Cascade Catering's threatening to file a lien. Silver Lake Pavilion wants immediate payment for cancellation, and Lux Frame Studios is demanding compensation for lost bookings. How much? Roughly $35,000 in cancellation fees and forfeited deposits. I hung up and looked at my son. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The sound of our shared realization filled the room louder than words ever could. The wedding that was supposed to cost $190 was now costing money even though it wasn't happening. Dad, I'm ruined, Evan said, voice cracking. The joint account is empty. Clara's been stealing our money, and now vendors want $35,000 in cancellation fees. Evan, I said evenly, take a breath. We'll solve one problem at a time. I called my lawyer, Tom Harrison. Tom, I need you to review some vendor contracts. The planner, Brent Colson, claims I'm financially liable for wedding debts, but I never signed any guarantor agreements. Robert, email me everything, he said. I'll review it tonight and call you first thing tomorrow. That evening, Evan sat at my kitchen table surrounded by bank statements, tracing the damage Clara had done. I thought about what Helen used to say, how pressure reveals character. Clara's response to crisis had been to lie, steal, and manipulate. She'd hidden a fake business, drained shared accounts, and left Evan to face the fallout while playing the victim of my financial control. Evan's reaction, however, was different. Painful honesty, real remorse, and the courage to face consequences. He was finally becoming the man his mother and I had raised him to be. Dad, he said quietly, not looking up from the papers, I owe you an apology bigger than words can carry. For what? For choosing Clara's version of success over your values, for excluding you from my wedding while expecting you to pay for it, for thinking love could be bought and family was optional. Evan, you don't owe me an apology, I said softly. You owe yourself a promise. Never let anyone treat you like this again. What if I can't trust my judgment anymore? What if I'm just bad at seeing who people really are? Then you'll get better at it. Experience costs, but it teaches. The next morning, Tom called with news that shifted everything. Robert, I reviewed every document Coulson sent. You're not liable for a dime. The language is misleading by design, meant to make you think you're guaranteeing payments when you're not. So the vendors can't come after me? They can try, but they have no legal footing. Those contracts belong to Evan and Clara. What about the guarantor language? Pure intimidation, Tom said. Coulson's counting on you not knowing the legal difference between a contact and a liable party. Relief hit hard, followed by anger. Tom, can we nail him for attempted fraud? We could, but it's not worth the court time. The real issue is whether Evan's on the hook for the full amount since Clara co-signed. That afternoon, I did something even I hadn't planned. I called Clara directly. Robert, why are you calling me? Because my son deserves to know who he was about to marry. I don't know what you mean. Beaumont Lifestyle Enterprises, $30,000 in jewelry, $22,000 from your joint account. Want me to keep going? Silence. Clara, are you there? How did you find out about that? Doesn't matter. What matters is you've been living a double life funded by money you stole from the man who trusted you. I didn't steal anything, she snapped. That money was for our future. Jewelry and designer furniture were your future together? You wouldn't understand. Image matters in my world. Evan needed to see that I could elevate his status. By bankrupting him? By showing him what success looks like. I hung up. It was like speaking to someone from another moral universe, where deception wasn't wrong if it produced admiration. That night, Evan made a decision that marked the line between victim and survivor. Dad, I'm calling Colson tomorrow. I'm canceling every vendor contract, negotiating real cancellation fees, closing the joint account, and filing a police report about the transfers. You're sure about the report? I'm sure about ending this clean. Clara needs to face consequences, and I need to stop enabling her. Evan, I'm proud of you. Don't be proud yet. I've got 2 years of debt to pay and a lot to rebuild. But at least I'm rebuilding on truth. The chain of revelations had unfolded exactly as it needed to. Clara's empire of lies had collapsed. The vendor threats were exposed as bluff, and Evan was standing on his own feet again. That night, as I sat in my kitchen looking at Helen's photo, I felt something close to peace. Not from being right, but from watching my son choose integrity over image. 3 weeks later, a new storm arrived. Evan called, his voice heavy but resolute. Dad, Clara's back from Portland. She wants to go through with the wedding. I set my paper down. What wedding? You canceled everything. She says her parents will fund it if we scale back. She's booked a small venue for this Saturday. And you said? I told her I needed time. She's acting like none of it happened. Like the lies, the missing money, the fake company were just misunderstandings. What do you want to do? I want to see who she really is when things get hard. That's dangerous. Maybe, but I need to know for sure. That afternoon, Clara called me herself, voice bright and rehearsed. Robert, I wanted to invite you personally to our wedding this Saturday. I know there have been misunderstandings, but we're starting fresh. What wedding? I thought everything was canceled. We found a charming venue in Kirkland, intimate, within budget, just family and friends. And where do I fit in this plan? You're Evan's father. Of course you're included. Do you actually want me there, Clara? A pause. Robert, family is important to both of us. That's not an answer. Of course we want you there. After hanging up, I called Liam. Check every venue in Kirkland for a booking under Beaumont or Hayes. 2 hours later, he called back. Mr. Hayes, there's nothing. No reservation. No permit. No event. Either she's lying or whatever she's planning isn't a wedding. That night, Evan came over, looking troubled. Dad, something's wrong. She keeps changing details. First a garden wedding. Now maybe her parents' house in Portland. No contracts. No paperwork. She says her parents are handling it all. Son, that should worry you more, not less. Friday evening, the mask finally slipped. Clara called again, her tone cold and precise. Robert, there's been a change for tomorrow. We're having a private ceremony, just Evan, me, my parents, and the officiant. And Evan knows this? He's fine with it. We agreed we need to focus on our commitment, without outside distractions. Outside distractions? I repeated. Is that what you call his father? You've made your feelings clear, she said icily. We don't want negativity at our special day. I hung up and called Evan. He answered instantly. Dad, Clara said you couldn't make it because you're not feeling well. Interesting. She told me you wanted a private ceremony without family. Silence. She lied to both of us. He said finally. Yes, she did. Now you know who you're marrying. Saturday morning, I drove to Kirkland to see what she was really planning. If there was a wedding, I'd attend. If not, I'd find out what this performance was. The trail led to Riverside Gardens, a small venue technically across the border in Bellevue. I followed white balloons and Clara's social media posts until I found it. Vendors were unloading, a catering van, a florist, a photographer I didn't recognize. It wasn't luxury. It was thrown together. At 10:30, Evan arrived, looking like a man walking into his own trial. He stood outside for minutes before going in. I waited, then crossed the street and entered as if I belonged. The space was modest. Rows of white chairs, a simple arch, about 40 guests. Clara greeted people near the entrance, radiant but tense. When she saw me, her smile froze. Robert, she said tightly. What a surprise. I thought you weren't feeling well. I'm fine, I said. I came to see my son get married. I'm not sure we have a seat for you, she murmured. Then I'll stand. Her mother appeared, all pearls and practiced charm. Mr. Hayes, how nice to see you. Though I do think there's been some confusion about today's arrangements. No confusion. My son's getting married, and I'm here to witness it. Of course, she said coolly, but this is a very intimate gathering. Then you should have made room for the groom's father. Her father stepped in, polished, diplomatic. Mr. Hayes, perhaps we could discuss this outside. I am being reasonable, I said quietly. I'm a father attending his son's wedding. We'd arranged this based on certain understandings, he said. Like what? That I didn't deserve an invitation. Guests had started turning toward the commotion. Clara's face flushed red. Robert, you're creating a scene. No, I said calmly. I'm stating facts. You lied to Evan about me. You lied to me about him. And now you want me gone before people start asking why the groom's father wasn't invited. That's when Evan appeared, drawn by the voices. When he saw me, I saw shock, then relief, then gratitude. Dad, what are you doing here? I'm here for your wedding, son. But Clara said you couldn't make it. Clara said a lot of things that weren't true. He looked from me to her parents, the realization dawning. Clara, he said slowly, did you tell my dad he wasn't invited? She hesitated. Evan, we discussed this. But the truth was already written all over her face. And we wanted intimacy, not complications. We never talked about excluding my father. Evan's voice cut through the silence like a blade. You said yourself he'd been difficult about the finances. Clara replied tightly. Being careful with money isn't being difficult, Evan said. And it sure as hell isn't a reason to ban him from his own son's wedding. Clara's composure snapped. Evan, you have to choose. Either we do this my way with people who support us, or we don't do it at all. The air in the room grew electric. Every guest knew they were witnessing a moment that would define him. Evan's reply came steady and clear. Clara, he's my father. If you can't accept him, you can't accept me. Don't be ridiculous, she hissed. This isn't about acceptance. It's about maintaining standards. Whose standards? Ours. The standards of the life we're building together. A life that excludes my family isn't a life I want. Her mask didn't just slip. It shattered. Your family is embarrassing. Evan, Your father's a maintenance worker who doesn't understand how the world works. My friends are doctors, lawyers, executives. They expect a certain level of sophistication. My father, Evan said, is a retired electrical engineer who worked his whole life to give me opportunities. He's the most decent man I know. Decency doesn't get you invited to the right parties. Then maybe we're going to the wrong parties. I watched my son finally have the conversation I'd been hoping he'd have. Not with me, but with himself, about what mattered, what was real, and what needed to be left behind. Clara tried one last time to regain control. If you humiliate me in front of my family, there's no coming back from this. Good, Evan said quietly, because I don't want to come back to this. He turned toward the guests. Thank you all for coming, he said, his voice steady. There won't be a wedding. Clara and I have different ideas about what marriage means, and it's better to face that truth now than after vows we can't keep. The silence was thick. Clara's mother gasped. Her father looked like a man calculating the social fallout. Clara stood frozen before spitting her final venom. You'll regret this, Evan. You're throwing away everything we built for a man who couldn't even pay for your wedding. No, Evan said calmly. I'm throwing away a fantasy for someone who actually loves me. He turned to me. Dad, want to get lunch? I'm suddenly free. As we walked out, Clara's voice drifted behind us, telling guests the ceremony was postponed due to a family emergency. Even in defeat, she was managing the narrative. Outside, Evan paused, looking back at the small Bellevue venue as confused guests began to leave. Dad, did I just make the biggest mistake of my life? No, son, I said. You just made the smartest one. It feels terrifying because growing up always does. We drove to a diner in Seattle, the kind with honest coffee and waitresses who call everyone sweetheart. Over bacon and eggs, Evan slowly exhaled months of tension. Dad, how did you know she wasn't right for me? Because she wanted you to be ashamed of where you came from, I said. People who love you don't erase your family. What if I never find someone who loves me for who I actually am? Then you'll be alone, which is better than being with someone who loves their idea of you. That breakfast cost $24. It was the best investment either of us had ever made. The fallout came fast. By Sunday morning, my phone was buzzing with strangers' opinions about my son's life. Clara's social media exploded with self-pitying posts about toxic family interference. Evan spent the day in my backyard, helping me prune Helen's roses while processing what had happened. Dad, he said, Clara's telling people you threatened to cut me off. And what are you telling them? The truth, that I realized I was about to marry someone who wanted me to be ashamed of my family. How's that being received? Mixed. Some think I'm crazy. Others say they never understood what I saw in her. And what do you think? He paused. I think I spent 2 years trying to become someone I thought was better, and I nearly lost myself. Monday brought clarity. Liam called. Mr. Hayes, I found out why Clara was desperate to stage a ceremony. She'd sold an exclusive story to Seattle Life magazine, from humble roots to high society, a modern love story. They paid her a $5,000 in advance. She was monetizing their marriage, I muttered. So worse, she was launching a personal brand. That evening, Evan read the email Liam forwarded, an editor asking for photos and interviews. His face went from disbelief to anger to quiet sadness. She was going to sell our love story. Because you loved her, I said. And love makes people hopeful. You saw who she could be, not who she was. What kind of person sells their wedding to a magazine? The kind who sees relationships as business. Tuesday morning. Clara showed up at my door uninvited. She looked smaller somehow, her energy gone. Robert, we need to talk. We really don't. Please, sir, 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat at the same table where we'd uncovered her lies. You don't understand the pressure I was under, she said. My parents, my friends, expectations. So you planned a fake wedding and excluded the groom's father to save face? It wasn't fake. I love Evan. You loved the idea of him, I said. The image that made you look accomplished. That's not fair. What's not fair is asking someone to abandon their family for your approval. And Evan has potential, she pleaded. He just needs refinement, someone who understands success. At what cost? His integrity, his relationships, himself? You're being dramatic. Am I? You stole from him, lied to him, humiliated him, and sold your wedding to a magazine. If that's success, Evan's better off failing. She looked down, defeated. What am I supposed to do now? My reputation's ruined. Then maybe it's time to build something real. You don't understand my world. You're right, and thank God Evan escaped it. She left without another word. Marcus, Evan, told me later she called a few times afterward, apologizing, bargaining, then threatening. He handled each with calm clarity. Wednesday brought another visitor, Brent Colson, the planner, looking pale. Mr. Hayes, I need to discuss Evan's financial obligations. He doesn't have any. There are unpaid vendor fees. Then Clara can pay them. Her parents refuse. Sounds like her problem. His voice cracked. If these debts aren't paid, my business collapses. I fronted payments myself. Then maybe you'll stop helping people live beyond their means, I said. I was helping them achieve dreams. No, you were selling fantasies. By Thursday, peace was returning. That night, Evan told me, Dad, I want to be someone Mom would be proud of, someone honest, grounded, and kind. You already are, I said. You just forgot for a while. By Christmas, he'd repaid his debts, closed Clara's company, and begun consulting for Liam's firm, helping small businesses tell real stories, not sell illusions. On Christmas morning, we made breakfast together while snow fell outside. Dad, he said, I finally understand something. Real love doesn't need an audience. I looked at my son, the man Helen and I raised, and smiled. That, I said, is the best gift you could have given her. The wedding that never happened had taught us both that love can't be bought, family can't be upgraded, and integrity, though expensive, is priceless. I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. I'm always curious about what you all think, and also write me where you heard this story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings, until next time.